Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Visual Storytelling for Positive Change in Wildlife Conservation with Jasper Doest. Thanks, Jasper, for being here.
Hello.
Thank you so much. We will have a beautiful hour ahead. We're going to talk about how Jasper started his career, how he switched from the one side of wildlife photography to the other, and kind of how his career formed. I think many of you know him already. I see in the comments there are quite some people that we know or that know us both. So my name is Ilvinio Kikchin. I'm today's host, and I'm a contributing photographer to Seven. And Jasper, you have such a beautiful biography that I could read from your website, but I think it would be best if you do a very short introduction of who you are.
Oh dear, that's always the most most difficult thing to do. Well, my name is Jasper, born and raised in the Netherlands, so it's really weird to talk in English with you, Ilvi,
It is.
because we're practically neighbors. But yeah, I work as a contributing photographer for National Geographic magazine, mainly on stories that talk about how we interact with the natural world. And yeah, what else do you want to know? I think we have an whole hour to talk about that.
Yeah, we do. Now, this was great just to give people who don't yet know you an idea, but I think most people here will know you. Um, Everyone who is here, please feel free to ask any questions and put them in the comment box. I hope I'm saying this right because we just moved to a new system, but I think it is right. Put them in the comment box, and I will make sure to get to them throughout the next hour. And Jasper, I know you prepared a beautiful presentation. So if you could open up the presentation, and then we're all gonna
Yes,
say, "Ah,
let's see how that
there
works.
we go.
There you go. Yeah, this is it, right? I could just start
This is it."
start ahead. Yeah, that's me. Those are my flamingo friends. We'll get to that. Um, yeah, start with the beginning, right? How it all
Yeah.
started.
Yes, exactly.
Um,
This is a great beginning. It's very cute.
yeah, I thought I would pull up something special for you. Um, you see the picture over there, and you see me holding this little thingy over here. It's the exact same camera.
Oh, you
It's
still have it.
I still have it, yeah, and I really cherish it. And I love the sound of the click.
Amazing.
Like it has a proper click. Unfortunately, you cannot buy any film for it anymore because it's half klein build, like the half of a 35 millimeter frame.
Oh,
If
they don't have
someone
it.
knows how to get film for this, let me know.
What is the type
Um,
of camera?
it's an old Kodak Instamatic. Um, and you would, yeah, the films were cartridges that you would put in, but I don't think the cartridges are still available.
Oh, that's too bad. Okay, maybe
But
someone has some advice. Please let
yeah,
us know.
so yeah, that would be fun. But as you see here, it must have been 4 or 5 um, when I started taking pictures with my mother's Kodak Instamatic, and I loved everything about it. I don't know how old you were, Ilvi, but at that age, photography was something magic. And I remember going uh, to the cigarette store on the corner. My parents didn't smoke, but that's where you would go to have your pictures developed. And yeah, it was always so exciting. These are frames from back then. I think these are from a holiday in Greece when I was around 10 years old. You see
Wow.
my
Very
parents in the
creative.
bottom right. Yeah, I would call it creative now. I think I just had difficulties with the framing, with the parallax effect of the viewfinder, but it wasn't about creating the perfect frame. It was just about play, and I loved the magic of the discovery after a week time where you would pick up the pictures. So yeah, there's that, and I remember in primary school that we had a photography project, like every Dutch photography school does photography projects, and we would go into the dark room and we were interviewed by this regional radio station, Radio Rijnmond, and they asked me if I wanted to become a photographer after this course. And I remember saying out loud, "No, no way," because I wanted to become a police officer. But here we are now.
This is much better, the career you
Yeah,
chose now. I think it matches you very well.
yeah, I think this works way better. Yeah, so this is me now in the field. Um, I never thought that I would be a photographer, and I still see myself as a little kid with the same excitement, and I still love cameras in the same way, which is kind of special when you think about it. That I've been walking around with it with well, it started with this one, but with cameras for 40 years, and that there's still so much joy to be found.
And
Um,
excitement. It yeah. Is it still uh I'm curious because you've done it for so many years. You now have a very certain style. Do you try to uh find new ways sometimes, or are you just to
oh
keep
yeah,
yourself
no, I love to play. I don't think I allow myself to play as much during assignment work as when I'm just on my own and there's no assignment attached. Recently, I started playing more with prints, and I've been making those platinum palladium prints like they would do in the 1800s.
wow, cool.
I just I just love everything about it, whether it's like more artistic or more journalistic. I love walking both roads.
Yeah, they're quite magical. It's magical to keep kind of reinventing yourself once in a while.
Yeah, yeah, and I just took 5 6 months off just to allow myself some time to do that, and yeah, it's been really great. And again, I've learned so much, and I think I've grown new appreciation for photography during those past months, and I look forward to get back to the field and to implement some of the stuff I learned.
Nice. Nice.
So
Sounds good.
what you see here is a quite boring picture of the Arctic tundra in Svalbard. I was quite a shy kid and loved the outdoors, and my parents would always teach me about the outdoors when uh, I raised a lot of respect in that regard. Um, but then I got really curious about the stuff that I was photographing, and one of the nice things about nature is that you can take pictures everywhere, depending on what definition you have for nature. And I would just go out and take pictures, but I didn't know much about it. And I think at the age of 20 or something like that, I really wanted to know more about the things that I was photographing. So I signed up for a master's in ecology at the Universiteit in Amsterdam. And that allowed me in my third year, I think, third or fourth year, to go to Svalbard, my first wilderness experience high up in the European Arctic. And it felt so free and it was so amazing to be out there. Um, and we were measuring plant growth, but as you can see in the picture, the plants in the Arctic are not very tall and they don't grow very fast.
Looks
So
like moss almost. I know it
yeah,
isn't, but
yeah,
yeah,
it's a
it's
lot
very
of
nice.
mosses and a lot of Arctic plants that grow a couple of millimeters a year. And that allowed me a lot of time with my camera, which
Yeah,
was the best part, I think, of the whole trip there. And it was then that I took this image, which
that's
for
it.
me has been a life changer for sure. Because while I was dreaming about doing something with photography, I don't have a photography background. I didn't know the business side of it. So uh, that seemed out of reach somehow. And back then there was a photography competition in the Netherlands hosted by a magazine called Grasduinen.
Mhm.
And they had an amateur category and a professional category. And I thought, why not? If I want to know where I stand as a photographer, I might just as well sign up for the professional category, which I did. And to my big surprise, this became the overall winner. And all of a
Amazing.
sudden, in the national newspapers, it said like professional photographer Jasper Doest wins this award, and yeah, that just looked really cool.
And then you really
And
were a professional. Once someone else says it, it's true.
yeah, yeah, that's right. That's how it works, right? It's a
Yeah,
self-acclaimed profession in that
yeah.
way. Um, So then I just took the leap and never looked back. And that was
Amazing.
pretty difficult at first, but I just started to take pictures of the natural world. That was my business plan at first. This must have been around early 2000s when there was still like a picture stock market where you could sell single images and still make a fair amount of money. And I thought that's going to be my business model. I'm going to travel the world and take pictures of the natural world and show its magnificence and beauty.
So you would
Uh,
invest your own money and then upload it to these kind of stock
yeah,
websites. Okay. And that really worked. As in,
it
there was enough
worked.
money in the stock. Okay.
And I was a student back then, so I had just finished, or I quit my studies. So I never finished my master's. I took the leap into the photography world, and but I came out of this student way of living, so I didn't have high expectations or I didn't have a mortgage or something that I needed to take care of.
Yeah.
So that little money that I would make this way was enough. And that lasted for quite a bit. I was able to sell photo series about the Arctic and about certain species to magazines. But then the market started to change, and people also started to ask me questions about what stories I had to tell, and I couldn't quite answer that. And maybe that's a nice story to go into with the monkeys that you see here on the screen.
It's interesting to me because I only know you from kind of later, I would say from the monkeys onwards. And I never would have guessed there was a photographer before that that was not telling stories but taking pictures without,
There,
well, I don't know if it was necessarily without a story, but as you describe it now, it was more stock images. I never knew.
there was none of the storytelling. Absolutely none. I didn't even know how to do it, where to begin, what a story was. Nothing. Um, and it feels like a different person to me now because now it comes so natural. But yeah, that part of me also existed.
Also, yeah, yeah, was there.
So I mainly pointed my camera at things that I loved, that I thought that were beautiful, and I lived for the experience.
I love the
Yeah, I
you
know it.
have the
You're
same
gonna comment
hairdo.
about my hair, right?
It's so similar to your neighbor.
Yeah, that's why I
Wow,
still love that picture.
that's amazing.
Um, so I lived for the experience. I felt very lucky that I could go to all these amazing places and take pictures, but there were no stories, not at all. And I would just allow myself to fall in love with them because was so close. This is like a population of 300 animals, and this has become a touristic hotspot. But back then, especially when I visited for the first time in the early 2000s, there would be hardly any people, and yeah, there was just a mesmerizing experience to be accepted by other species just for who you are. And I started to recognize the individual beings in the population and to see their personal traits and their individual characters. And because of that, the images became more intimate. And at some point, I think around 2012, 2013, I had just taken this image and it had been awarded in Wildlife Photographer of the Year in the competition, that I uh, gained enough confidence to approach National Geographic to see if they would be interested in running a story about the Japanese macaques. Because I thought I have a cool portfolio now. I'd never seen images like that before of this species, so I thought, why not? Um, so I wrote an email to Kathy Moran, who was the senior photo editor of natural history at the magazine back then. And while she loved the work, her first question was like, "Yeah, what about them?
Ah,
What's the
what's the
story?"
story? Oh, wow.
And all I could say was like, "They're amazing animals, and we need to treat them with the utmost respect, but but nothing more than that, really." Which is not. the sentence that allows you to walk away with an assignment for National Geographic. I know
No.
that now. Um,
What did she write
so
back to you? Like, thank you, sorry?
no, no, she was very interested because she loved the work, but it was like I would love to publish it, but what are we going to tell about them? And I didn't know. So she kept asking over the years. She has asked it quite a lot of times. What's the story? I remember at some point I did a pitch to her, like I haven't seen a good story about swans, like mute swans, just the ones that you find in Utrecht or in Amsterdam.
Hmm.
And I thought, yeah, that would be pretty cool. So I said, Kathy, swans. She said, Jasper, that's a subject. It's not a story. And she was so right. But yeah, back then I really had no clue.
So that
Um,
really had to click at one. Yeah, it's a different way
that
of thinking.
needed, yes. And eventually, what made the difference for me was that a close friend of mine passed away. I don't have that story prepared here, but um, he passed away, and he was the kind of person that would do things, who would get things done. And yeah, all of a sudden he was gone, and I felt so useless with all those pretty images. I even asked some colleagues, like, "Hey, what's the value of what I'm doing here?" And they did say that beauty is the invitation. It invites you in, and then once people are in love with the subject, then you can show them the truth. But I needed more than that, and then I've been talking with Kathy about that, and eventually I saw this social documentary workshop in Missouri, the Missouri Photo Workshop, and I wrote her, like, "Is this something for me?" And she wrote me back, "Do it!" Exclamation mark. And I'm so glad that I did, because that helped me a lot in learning about visual narrative. And um, I remember the first time Kathy started to talk with me about visual narrative, I had to look it up in the dictionary. I'm
Yeah,
not a
yeah.
native speaker to the English language, and she would say, "You need to find your visual voice." Now,
And
what
you
does
were,
that mean?
yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah, those
I
things can
know.
be very confusing. I've had these kind of discussions early on in my career where I was like, wow, if you're not a native English speaker,
Yeah,
I had to Google contemporary issues because I won an award at the World Press Photo, and that was the category I won in. Also, the category I sent my work in, but I didn't know what contemporary issue meant. And then I Googled it, and then I found out quite early on in my career that I love contemporary issues. And that's how I found my way, just by Googling this word.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just
That's
simple.
how I found my visual voice too. Like, oh, is it that? Um, yeah, those crazy things. So I went back to Japan, knowing that we've been staring at that picture way too long. Um, I went back to Japan to figure out what story there was to tell for me, and I realized that by defining myself as a nature photographer or wildlife photographer, natural history photographer, whatever, um, I left out something very important. Um, these animals are wild and free. They can go and come as they please. They live high up in the mountains, but every day they come down the mountain not only to bathe in hot springs, but because they're fed on a daily basis. And the Japanese started to do that because um, they didn't like monkeys to hang out around human habitation.
Hmm.
One lady once started feeding a monkey near a hot spring. The oldest female, she loved the food, she loved the hot springs, so she just started to hang out in the pool. And then suddenly, all the other monkeys started copying that behavior. And as
Wow. Okay.
Japan loves hot springs, and many people in that area have private hot springs at their property, the monkeys would also start hanging out there, and that created conflict in the area. And a way to avoid that was to start feeding the monkeys. But then someone has to pay for food. So they created this monkey park where they would sell tickets, and from the income that they would have through this, they would buy the food to avoid conflict, which seemed like a good idea. But then, as I stood there in that monkey park looking at all of this, I started thinking, what are the consequences of this daily feeding routine that
Mm.
must have an impact on a population scale? And I did some research and I found out that in 3 or 4 decades, the monkey population increased a tenfold. And that now the monkeys who were once regarded as sacred in the country were becoming a pest because now you have too many monkeys in one area. They start leaving the area,
Hmm.
especially the subdominant males. They start leaving the group, and uh, they would end up on the farmland just around the area. So all of a sudden, you have hundreds of monkeys. You see how close the forest is to the agricultural land. And all of a sudden, you find thousands of monkeys entering the beating heart of Japan's agriculture. And
Yeah.
then the real conflict started. And that's when I realized, like, oh, maybe the story is not at the hot springs, but maybe there's something here to discover, um, where you see the monkeys meeting an aging population. Like Japan has a big aging issue. And yeah, the farmers weren't really prepared for that. And this is the lovely Tazuo Uchiyama on her family farm in the Nagano prefecture. And she had been living on that farm for almost 60 years by the time that I met her. And
Hmm.
she told me that she never had any problems with monkeys until 15 years before this picture was taken. And then slowly the monkeys started coming from the mountains. And now she had to defend her farm with a semi automatic air gun.
Wow.
She doesn't want to shoot with real bullets because still the monkeys are sacred in the country. But
That's
yeah,
something,
yeah, you have
obviously.
to do something. But in the meantime, the monkeys have learned that those air guns can't do them any harm, and they leave Uchiyama-san and many other farmers in despair. So it's a big issue that is still not solved, and the government is trying to solve it by trying to capture the animals, but they're really smart. And we also have to realize that um, they're only making use of a situation that we have created for them.
Hmm.
And that's something that the people are also very aware of. So that the local communities do not really want to kill the monkeys, but yet the government needs to come up with a solution. And that those issues are very difficult. And
It's always the
when
humans, the
always the
interfering.
humans, yeah, and that's how humans all of a sudden started coming into play. So I had been photographing animals all this time, and then I found myself in the beating heart of Japan's monkey entertainment industry. And I realized that for all these years, I've been photographing what I loved, and I felt very fortunate that that has been the case. But here I found myself photographing what I hated, and that
Mhm.
was something I really needed to learn. So I was still balancing like this kind of stuff with trips to south of Spain, where I would photograph flamingos, or to Svalbard, where I would um, go to the icy environment that I fell in love with back during my studies. But I felt the urge to tell this story and to look into the relationship that we have with humans. With Japan was such a beautiful example where you see a spiritual connection with the natural world, and there's so much history, but yet you find monkeys entertaining on the street who were once sacred and now being seen as a scapegoat.
So, did you
Um,
realize while taking these images, because you said I started photographing things that I hated, that did you realize at that moment that you also give them a voice in a really good, like you were going to? You were about to go give them a voice. Did you realize it while shooting? Or did you
No,
just think, I'm gonna, okay, you were just taking pictures?
I was taking pictures. I was trying to tell a story. I was not so much aware of the impact that the stories could
I
have.
see.
There was still something I needed to discover, or I was discovering bit by bit. I remember remembering having a portfolio review around the same time, just after I had just taken these images, and the story wasn't finished yet. And I really wanted someone's opinion, so I showed this work, and the editor said, "Yeah, it's good. You need to improve here and there." And then, as a second portfolio, I started showing pictures of my family, and eventually he said, "Now you need to go back to the monkeys and do the exact same thing
Ah, interesting.
with the monkeys as you did with your family, because you
Yes,
care, and you need to show that you care here too, and you need to do that with the monkeys because you owe it to them." Because at that point, my natural history work was celebrated internationally, but yeah, then what? I made a career
exactly.
over these monkeys, and now it's time to do something back. And I had no clue what that would look like, but yeah, it's a good question. I didn't realize that at all at that point.
Mm-mm.
Um, so yeah, I had great difficulties exploring. Going back one frame, I walked here in the bar, and there is this red light being turned on. These monkeys, they would serve beers and hand out napkins in a restaurant setting. And after, uh, at the end of the evening, they would do this show where the owner would turn on the red light and call in sexy time, um,
Oh, wow.
with a big smile. Yeah, it was really nasty. And the monkeys were trained, so they started petting their diapers. It was
Oh,
absolutely
wow.
horrifying. Especially with the sound of the people laughing in the restaurant and cheering. And I cried in my room that night, thinking, like, what
Yeah.
did I sign up for? What is
What
all
is it?
this?
Yeah.
So I showed these pictures to Kathy, and her first response was, "Can you also show the love that these people have for the monkeys?"
Hmm.
And I was, at first I didn't understand. Like, I wanted this to stop. So why do I need people loving monkeys? I just want to expose this, you know?
Yeah.
More like an activist, not acting from a journalistic standpoint. And um, her question was probably the best one that she could have asked, because I I was able to find this family who had three pet monkeys,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't speak English very well, so I did most of the things with Google Translate. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and they were not as tech savvy. They were already older. So they brought in the daughter, who you see in the left of this frame here, to help with her telephone to do the Google Translate thing from the Japanese side. And she came in walking with a pug in a purse. You see the dog sitting at the
Yes.
bottom of the frame. So here I have a daughter who walks around town with a pug in a purse, and we have a mom carrying a monkey on her shoulder. And the
Yes.
thing on the left is something that we're slowly getting adjusted to, even though I still find it weird that you have to carry a dog around. But the thing on the right is something that, especially from when you live in the Netherlands or any other country here in Western Europe, people would have a very strong opinion about. But here you
Absolutely.
see them in one frame, and it became very, very strange when the monkey
Wow.
started grooming the dog. And I realized that maybe I'm not here to judge. And I got so curious about all of this. Like, how does this work? These people have a monkey. They clearly they love the monkeys, but they're still on a leash. They also have a dog. We keep dogs on a leash.
Yeah.
Wow, this world is weird, right?
Absolutely.
So instead of having a strong opinion about the Japanese and their monkey entertainment, I started to think about about us as human beings, and I started to zoom out, and um, that allowed me to befriend Sheena-san, this lady here who is also a monkey trainer, who is now baiting with 3 baby monkeys that had been captured 3 weeks earlier at a site that I also had visited. And
Seems like she sees them as children. If
yes, yes.
you get this
And
picture, yeah.
then when I was with them, I photographed this monkey that was around 13 years old, had a lot of tumors in his body, and it turned out that this was the last picture that was taken of him. They texted me a few days after I left that he passed away. So when I returned to Japan to continue to work with them, I brought them a print, and they sat me down in the kitchen, and they brought in this urn containing the ashes of the monkey, and um, they burned incense and we burned candles, and then they started to cry, and there all of a sudden it was the love that they had
Mm,
for these monkeys being exposed. And yeah, it allowed me to see it in a different way, that it's not my role to judge as an outsider, it's my role to document.
mhm,
And even though we might have very strong opinions about all of this, uh, and they would still train these little monkeys to become part of traditional entertainment. Uh, it's way too easy as an outsider to step in and say what you're doing is wrong. And as soon as you start pointing fingers at one person, there will always be a finger pointing back at you, saying like, "What about our cattle industry?" Like
mhm.
dairy farming being a big issue now in the Netherlands. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just as bad.
I think
So
in general, as a photographer, what I've learned, and I can hear you've learned exactly the same thing in the similar years, is that it's very difficult to photograph stories when you don't have an open mind about it.
yeah,
I've seen so many things happening that I had to photograph where I thought, oh, I despise these people or this system or this thing. And then you have to keep seeing people as humans
yeah,
always in literally every case, I think.
yeah. No, yeah,
Otherwise,
you,
you can't,
you're
yeah,
right. And
everyone's
it also,
human.
I don't know how it works for you, but it taught me that shame is of or how do you say that? Change um, is not brought into this world by shaming and blaming. And I think
Yeah.
that's what we see a lot these days, pointing fingers and blaming others. But I think the key is to try to connect with the other persons, even though you might not agree, and that's where you can meet each other. And I think that's what we should do way more as human beings. And I think photography can play a really important role in that, as we can
Mhm.
shine light on all the nuances that are there and show them, uh, make them visible.
Absolutely.
And yeah, there was a real learning curve. And ever since Uh, I've dreamt about making a difference in Japan, but unfortunately, the story hit the pages of the magazine. Eventually, Kathy decided to publish it. Um, they hit the pages of the magazine when we started entering a pandemic, so it
Oh,
didn't allow me to go back to Japan, because I think just like you, and you keep going back to South Africa,
yeah,
um, and I saw you doing the exhibition there, and it's the stories need to come alive in the countries themselves, and
yeah.
you need to become part of the
There was a
discussion.
there was a 5-year delay because of COVID as
Yeah.
well. My
See?
project
Yeah.
finished exactly a few months before COVID happened. All the shows were canceled, and then you
Yeah.
can't show the work there. And there,
Yeah.
it's now being shown. So five
Yeah.
years later.
So I'm following you, and I hope to go back to Japan and to be part of the conversation here, because I think in the end it's all about creating positive change, not from an activist standpoint, but by showing all these nuances, opening up a debate, showing understanding,
Hmm.
and move from there. And I think photojournalism can play a very important role.
Absolutely. And I think for your project, it might also be the people that are now involved. Some of them, well, you spoke to so many, I'm sure that if that some of them might already have this some thoughts about the system.
When I won World Press with this series
Uh-huh.
a couple of years ago, I got a text message from the monkey trainers with monkeys holding signs like "Congratulations, Jasper." So there's
Oh,
still a
a
long
long
way
way
to
to
go.
go.
Yeah,
You have to go back then for sure.
yeah. And ever since I've looked at that um intersection where culture and nature meet. And I love doing that and expanding the portfolio and learning what it means to be human.
Hmm.
Even when you look at something like this, which was a study in Leiden for a story um, about animal language, where we
Hmm.
looked at song development. The bird on the left is a robotic bird
Oh,
that was built to learn about song development in these zebra finches. And it's fascinating. And this was some of my early work, um, where I love the symbolism in things like the monkeys were sacred in Japan. Here we look at a white stork that has a special meaning in Western European culture, where it's being believed or being seen as um, the symbol of new life. The whole
hmm.
maternity industry moves around storks. And it's being believed that in the old days that the storks would come in flying with the cloth with the baby inside, and they would bring the babies to the expectant parents. And here you see the symbol of new life all of a sudden foraging on the excretions of human life. And I love these contrasts because they make people think, and then you're able to tell a story in a single frame, which I really enjoy. But then we talked about humans and discovering what it means to be human, and then the human side comes into play, and all these wonderful people that try to make a difference for other species every single day. And I think if um, I would love to initiate big global change, but if there's one reason why I do what I do, it's because of these people, to
Hmm.
give them a voice. And of course also the animals who can't speak a human language, they need to be heard too. But it's through the work of conservationists and people who care deeply that we can provide help. And they do such amazing work. This guy is making like these little carts for dogs that have lost their legs, so to make them walk again. And it's his full-time living, and he's in his 20s, and he just decided that this was his life's purpose.
Wow.
Just amazing. A guy in the south of Turkey who just decides to dedicate himself to helping
People can do
others.
such amazing things.
Yeah.
Sometimes we kind of forget that, especially when you read the news every day. It's difficult to
Yeah.
remember, but it's true.
I try to stay, I don't know how you deal with it these days, but I try to stay away from the news as much as I can. But I do scroll every day through the Dutch news app, just
Yeah.
briefly,
Yeah, I do the same. I do the
because
same.
these
And
kind
I
of stories are never exposed in the in mainstream news, which is a
no,
shame.
it's not news. That's the issue. Yeah.
Yeah,
But it
but
should be more.
it's newsworthy
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
agree.
But you wanted to talk about positive stuff and change, right?
Solutions.
Solutions. Well,
Your
there's
book.
one story I will have to share. Um, you saw the flamingos when I started with the opening frame, and I told you that I would come back to that. Um, yeah, I would like to take you to the island of Curacao in the Caribbean, just above the coast of Venezuela. And I had just arrived there, I think 9 years ago. Yeah, must be 9 years ago, 2016. I just arrived after visiting DC, um, and I thought I'm in the area now. I have some family in Curacao. Let's visit them. I've already crossed the Atlantic, and I arrive and I wake up the next morning after a terrible night of sleep, and I wake up looking at a flamingo right by my bedside.
Oh, wow.
And I'm a photographer, so what do? You try to grab for your camera, but my camera was still packed on the other side of the room. And I remember thinking that no one would ever believe what I saw that in that moment. And yeah, this flamingo, he had made a terrible mistake as he flew into the Hilton Hotel on the island, crashed against the window, and he ended up next to the swimming pool with a concussion.
Wow, it's amazing that he
But
survived, actually.
yeah, 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 we're lucky that he survived because he's been
Yeah.
in our lives for quite a while now. Spoiler alert. Because he was lucky enough that he found my cousin Odette, who is a veterinarian on the island. She started veterinarian practices in Utrecht and then moved back to the island to give something back to the place where she was born and raised. And she's an amazing vet who specializes in birds. So he got extremely lucky to end up at the right place. But when she tried to rehabilitate him, it was an X-ray of his left foot. She found out that he started to develop arthritis. You can see that the joint is a little bit cloudy. It's all grown together. Normally, there should be spacing between the bone tissue, and therefore he would not be able to release. Um, she would not be able to release him back to the wild. So normally she has quite some tricks up her sleeve to rehabilitate animals and bring them back, like she did here with this flamingo, which is not the same bird. But he came in from a neighboring island with terrible damage, the webbing between the toes. And she made these cool slippers, treated the bird, and after a couple of weeks, he could be released back to the wild. And actually, I met him a couple of years later. Um,
And
it was
he's
nice to
fine.
see that, yeah, he's fine. It was nice to see that he's doing so well. But with this one, or with the bird that you just saw that crashed against the window, she had to make a very difficult decision and choose between life and death, like many veterinarians often have to do once you realize that you can't really help the animal. So, what do you do? Do you release it back to the wild knowing that it won't survive? Do you euthanize it, or do you take it in? And as I already said, that he's still with us, she decided to take him in, and she made him part of her family,
Oh,
one that she shares now with 70 plus other animals, including 10 dogs, 10 cats, and many other exotic birds.
wow. In our house, right? This is
In our
her kitchen. This
house,
is from her
this is her
workplace.
kitchen. Yes. So there's a
Wow.
story.
That
And
is a
also,
story.
also this story I didn't see at first. I texted it to a friend of mine. I was taking pictures of my cousin since it was a family visit, and I had seen the flamingo. So of course, you take some pictures of the flamingo. But I never realized that this would be such a muse and that it would actually be the biggest story that I think I've done that still
Mhm.
continues to this very date. Um, so I just
I
started to
even
follow
think
them around the house.
wherever I see flamingos, which is everywhere, I always think, oh, I should send this to Jasper. And I'm sure everyone does that.
Yeah, I get a lot of pictures of that flamingo at I think it's Miami Airport.
Yeah.
And the huge flamingo that is looking down. Yeah, I get that quite a lot. But
Yeah.
I always appreciate it because it's nice that people think of this flamingo that in the meantime we had named Bob.
Bob. Oh.
So I just started to follow him around the house, and that was the coolest thing because you get to see like an animal that is so colorful and vivid and alive, and you get to see him in a context that's just off. And that were the best ingredients for bringing humor into the frames, and then also still allowing a conservation message to get through. So here you see Bob walking through the neighborhood. I've also learned that everything works with pink and orange. I don't I don't know how your parents were, but I learned that some colors are, yeah, how do you
Shouldn't
say that
match.
in English? They shouldn't match. No, you shouldn't do certain combinations.
Uh-huh.
And pink and red, for instance, or whatever
Yeah.
combination with pink, it was always difficult. Well, pink matches with everything. And it was so much fun to play with. And then
Oh
yeah, as I
wow.
started following them, and she is like this amazing woman who was leading 7 different lives in one, being an athlete, national shot put champion in her age category, doing a PhD on bat research, director of the board of the National Conservation Organization, a single mom, uh, party animal, you name it, it's her. And
How
being
long
a,
did you play this first time? Because you have a
how
lot. Is
long?
this all from this one time you were there?
No,
What
I
we
think this is from 4 times. So I started to come back. I think this is from the second or third visit,
Okay, okay.
but I just kept coming back because every time I would visit, there would be something new, and that's the nice thing that you. A lot of people think this work is staged or set up, um, but it's not. And the I think if you start setting up work like this, you can only go as far as your own imagination. And
Hmm.
I do have a wildly vivid imagination, but I would never be able to come up with some of the frames that I've captured over the years. And I think the key is to create pictures that go beyond imagination. And the way to do that is to just be present. And especially when you're in a surrounding or in a situation where your surroundings are so lively,
Hmm.
with a personality that's so bubbly and so busy with all these different activities. It's a constant wave of inspiration and visuals coming at you.
And does
I mean,
Bob recognize? Oh, look at this. Does Bob recognize you?
I get that question a lot. I would say he does, but I'm not sure. I often turn the question around and ask why wouldn't he?
Yeah.
And then yeah, I think that says it all, right? We assume because animals don't speak our language that they are something less, but yeah, I don't believe that. But I can't look in his head. I don't know if he likes to ride the car. He has a special seat now, and he has a little bag, and he rides shotgun. Um,
Obviously.
I don't. It looks really cool, and it looks like he's having a good time. He's always looking outside the window. But yeah, I don't know if he's happy or if he likes it. But he serves a bigger purpose, and he's probably not aware of that. I don't know. But Odette brings him to the local schools, and she teaches nature education and conservation education to the kids. And when he walks into the classroom, it's still one of these moments that stay with you every time again. It's yeah, it's
This is
special seeing
beautiful
those
stuff.
kids light up, and by talking about Bob instead of about flamingos in general. So it's not a flamingo education session, but she talks about the individual that's right there in front of them.
Mm.
They fall in love with him. They bring the stories back home, and when the people start when their parents, for instance, they say something bad about a flamingo, or they chase a flamingo with the dogs, the kids they step in and they say, "Hey, you shouldn't do that because that's Bob's brother, that's Bob's mom,"
Exactly.
and that's how it works. And the story has It's had an amazing ripple effect over the island that now Bob is famous. Bob and Odette are a very well known couple on the island, and are often being stopped, like when she's at the red light in the stopping the car just at the crossing. People look through the window, see a flamingo, and they open the windows like, "Oh, is that Bob?" And it's
Oh, wow, amazing. Your story really, this resonates all around the world. I mean, I've seen Bob everywhere.
yeah. Oh, it's
You can
and
see
that's
it right
because
there.
it's
It's beautiful.
it's a flamingo. I got lucky because
Yeah,
flamingos were wildly popular around the time that the story was released.
could have been a
But
more
it's
boring species, or yeah, more boring bird flying against the Hilton. Less, I mean, not boring,
yeah,
less photogenic. Let's put it that way.
yeah. Well, they're super photogenic. I hear you, but it's I think the power lies in the um, universal story of the power of empathy.
Hmm.
And it's a conservation story, yes, for sure. And she does amazing work rescuing these animals, teaching kids, doing something back for the island that is so close to our hearts because her father and my father are brothers. And I got to explore my heritage through this flamingo. Uh, and you see her in the car now with my two girls. Um, It's been an amazing roller coaster ride, but I think that the reason that it resonates, aside from being a flamingo and super colorful, is that it's a story about empathy, and it's a hopeful story. And often, especially in these times where we talk about climate change, we talk about destruction, we talk about fires, we talk about floodings. And yes, that's all true, and all these stories need to be told. But I think looking at solutions is just as important. And especially looking at the people who try to make a difference on a daily basis is something that we need to do more. And every single story um, always has multiple angles. And I think it's our responsibility as photographers not only to show the harsh reality, but also look at stuff that resonates with people and makes them want to join the bandwagon and fight for something.
I also really believe the time for solution stories is really now, because people are quite fed up with stories that don't give any solution, and it's just yeah, the
Yeah.
difficult, yeah, showing the difficulties or showing the issue only. um,
And then the visual side here, of course, as we said earlier, like pretty pictures, what's the role of that? It's the invitation to a deeper understanding because when you see a spread with a flamingo in front of a vending machine, um, it stops you and you want to see the caption and then you start reading the article. And oh, here you see Bob being famous in the television studio. But I think that's the power of this work is that it talks about conservation, but in a very inviting way without being dry, too scientific. Um,
and
and
it
with
shows
every
so much love and so much he's such a human, like there's such a connection between Odette and Bob. I think that's what makes it so lovely. And he seems
yeah,
like a very calm creature, as in he's easy in every situation, seems like.
yeah, even at Christmas. Oh yeah, and so I got super lucky with World Press recognizing this as a story of empathy, and they still do. It even ran again during the most recent exhibition last year as an example of positive stories. Um, when it was published, or yeah, when World Press released that series, National Geographic wanted to publish it too. Had my own 2 feet as the opening spread of the magazine article, which was really bizarre. Um, and when I started posting the images online, the first one that ended up with National Geographic had 1.3 million likes, and that was when I realized, like, hey, there's a chance to do something back for Odette and Bob, which is when I released this book, Meet Bob, which is an invitation for everyone to meet Bob. Um, and through that book, we've been able to raise funds to help them pushing conservation efforts forward. So not only has it been a way to shine positive light on nature conservation, but it actually has helped people to make a contribution and to raise funds and to actually do something to become part of the change. And I think especially positive stories have great potential with that because people want to have a positive story and bring it into their lives. I don't know about your bookshelves, but as much as I admire some of the work done around wars and things like that,
It's never
and
uplifting.
I have purchased books of colleagues that have done that just out of respect of the colleagues, but not because it's a book that I would open every week. While
No.
this on your table, you would want to look at,
Yeah,
and
absolutely. It's a big difference of what you feel after seeing this story of Bob or seeing some, yeah, very newsy war story.
yeah, yeah. So that's I think I found the purpose in telling these stories and in looking at a more positive angle. And with every story that I do, I always try to look for things that might inspire or bring some hope to, yeah, sometimes dire situations.
Yeah, and you really do. And I also really like that Kathy Moran said, now go photograph the subject like it's your family. And then you actually ended up on this next Bob story where you make it such a human story and also connected to humans,
Yeah,
including your own family. So it's a full circle kind of.
it's a full circle. During the pandemic, I started photographing my own family actually with in relationship to pigeons, and that was even closer to home. But uh, I have to say, I started out as a nature photographer, trying to shy away from people, and now I actually love that human component. And as much as I love the natural world from a visual perspective, when I point my lens at another species, I often think like, I missed something.
Mhm.
Um, and it makes me want to go back to that urban jungle because that's for me when where stories are waiting.
Mhm. Yeah, you are very strong at this type of story. And I love also with your other stories like the pigeon and your family during COVID that you really found your voice, not only by Googling what is your visual voice was a good starting point, but throughout your career you can really see that you found it by following your heart, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. But I had some amazing guiding lights on the way. Like you mentioned Kathy, and she is definitely be one of them. Not by holding my hand and showing me, but by asking crucial questions that made me think. Oh, here's the picture that was the opening spread for the article. Um, funny thing. Also, this was very serendipitous. He was walking out of the water, so I'm walking backwards, looking through my angle finder. So I'm looking down, and I walk back, and I fall. And the only way to balance your camera is to lift your feet because you're falling in the water. You should try it when you fall backwards and you fall on your butt and you go backwards. You have to elevate your feet in order to stay balanced.
Yeah.
And as I was still looking through the viewfinder, because I was so um, in love with that bird just swimming there, I lifted my feet and I saw the feet coming into, into frame and was like, oh, wow, this is cool.
It's such a perfect shot and a really good opening page.
Yeah, yeah. I had never expected that my feet would be an opening spread, but yeah, there you are.
You are. There you are. So I wanted to check if there are any questions. There were a few questions that came in. They are from a while back because I was just kind of mesmerized by your presentation. So I thought let's keep them to the end. But just so you know, when you hear these questions now, that they are from a while back. The one from Daniel From was from the moment where you talked about stock photography.
Hmm.
Uh, Daniel says it might Could you elaborate on how the stock photo market changed or why that model no longer works? Do you still upload work there? When did
No,
that kind of stop? No.
I still get a paycheck like every 3 months. When the girls were born, I would often say like, yeah, it's enough to buy diapers,
Uh-huh.
but no more than that. It has become a pennies game.
Yeah.
Um, Prices have dropped drastically, and I think you can still make a decent amount of money through stock, but then that should be your main emphasis. So you should shoot that kind of material, and you should upload and keyword all the time. And since I hate keywording, and yeah, it's not for me. So with the few images that I would be able to upload, um, I would not make enough money, so I stopped doing that. But yeah, by the time during the time when I started with photography, it was still a lucrative business model for sure.
And I actually wonder if it will stay lucrative for the people who are in it now because of AI, but that's a whole different
Yeah,
discussion.
that's right. Yeah.
I wonder about it. Good way to make keywords, by the way, AI.
Oh
That
yeah,
does
for
happen a
sure.
lot.
Yeah. That's, maybe you should go back into stock.
Yeah, just switch back. Forget all this beautiful work. Are there any other questions? Was that the only question? Does anyone have a
Oh,
question? Ah, I
do
wouldn't
you
mind.
have a question?
Yeah, I've asked a few already. Let me think. Do I have a last question? Oh, should we switch back to seeing us? Was this your last slide?
No, I can do another one.
Oh, do another
Yes,
one. We'll keep it
do
on
another
this.
one. Let's see.
Oh,
How do I do
Ron
that?
has a question.
Ah, there's one. Yeah, I
Oh,
see a question coming in. How do you fund your travel and photography projects? Yeah, it's a good one because that's quite a struggle for many photographers, I think. Uh, the way I did it in the past when I was not working on assignment, because nowadays I mainly work on assignment and then expenses are being covered. I would host my own trips to Japan, for instance, to the snow monkeys, and that would often cover my expenses. I would stay longer, so I would do a trip guiding people, and then I would stay and then just work on my own work in the weeks after that. So I would cover my expenses and travel costs, etc., through hosting these trips, and then I eventually would end up selling the stories, which would then be another way of making income. So that's how I balanced it for a long time. And then when the assignment work started to pick up, I decided to stop that because then I could focus on being a photographer instead of a travel agent. But it was a good way, especially in the conservation world or in the nature world, to yeah, to make a living.
mhm. There is a long question from Fernanda. Hi, Fernanda, who we both know well.
Fernanda!
Hello. Um, Thinking about. Oh, yeah,
Oh, look at
sorry.
that! Wow,
Yeah, look at this. Sorry. I knew we could do this, but I forgot about it.
love the
Thinking
new
about what
platform.
Jasper said in the beginning, that the editor asked him to also capture the love the Japanese have for the monkeys and the positive side of the story, and connecting it with what Ilvi later said about how we're fed up with negative news in the media. I'm here thinking if we shift entirely to publishing only positive stories, could it create a somewhat naive perception that everything is under control, ultimately weakening the impact of activist photography and journalism? I've
Mm.
answered that, but I think she's asking you. But let's
I
you
would be
start
curious
and
for your answer, but I I'm not saying that it only should be positive. That's the first thing that comes to mind. But we definitely could use a little bit more optimism in stories. And I'm also not saying that it's under control. I think that's a misconception of positive angles. So what I often do is I tell a bigger story about climate change, and then I bring in positive angles on people that are making a difference. And you still get the understanding and the whole context of the world we're living in. But then um, often towards the end of the story, you focus on yeah, and now what? Looking into the future. Um, I would never. I think if you would filter out the negative side of a story, you're not being a photojournalist, and you're again being propaganda for happiness. Nothing wrong with that, but that's not who I want to be. Um,
Propaganda for happiness. I do
yeah,
like that.
maybe I should create a website or something.
No, I think that's a great answer, and that was actually what I was going to say too. I remember when I was asked to do a solution-based story for the first time. I think it was in 2021. I thought, no, I don't want to just talk about happy stories because the world is boring, burning, not boring, burning. And then I kind of dove into the whole solution based journalism and I realized, oh, it's actually highlighting the issue and then also highlighting the solution. And that made me realize that that for me also is the perfect way of telling stories because otherwise, especially after being 18 years in this industry, I also realized it becomes quite heavy if you only are focusing on the heaviness of the world.
Yeah. Well, if you think
Yeah,
of war, for instance, like war is not only shooting and is not only
exactly.
people dying. It's also um human lives, people who are confronted with war who have nothing to do with it, but also people falling in love during war. It's all of that. It's human life within that context, and I think it's our obligation to show all of that, rather than to just choose one aspect of it and shine a big spotlight of it and forget about anything else.
Yeah,
And sometimes that's difficult because it's too big, and then you can't do it. But at least that's what we should try.
I agree. We have a last question, or the last question we're going to get to. It is from Kelly Compton. There we go. Do you worry about how the people in your photos might fall under scrutiny from your photos since topics are so nuanced? Thinking again the monkeys and how some of your images were uncomfortable, like the monkeys in chains, but their caretakers had so much love for them. Or is it just part of the bias that you have to remove yourself from as a photojournalist?
Mm, I think I'm very protective of those for those frames. Like I wouldn't release those in the stock market because then context might get lost as the captions might not go alongside with them. So I release those images only with proper captions, because I'm very well aware of the effect that it could have on the people who are not bad people. Um, they do something that I would do different myself, but I'm not there to accuse them of anything. Much rather, I would like to have a conversation with them and see where we can find a solution. Um, yeah, these stories are very nuanced. The people have agreed to be photographed often know where the pictures end up,
Hmm.
and some of them have signed like a waiver. Uh, but it's especially in foreign countries that are not familiar with the media that I work for. I try to handle it with the utmost care and sometimes flag images as sensitive that they shouldn't be used beyond the editorial usage of the story that we're working on. Um, yeah, it's something that I'm always thinking about in the field, and I hope you you are too, and I think you are.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, uh, yeah, you can't really control how people react to a story. You can in the ways that you just described, but then it's the viewer or some people who might comment on the story. They can just go in really strange directions. So I really also started telling my protagonist that this might happen. I always tell them in advance,
Mm.
especially
Yeah.
when I work for New York Times. It's a huge audience. You will get a lot of responses. Just know that about half of them will be negative, some of them will be very negative, and then there will be half of them will be positive. So, because I want people to really understand what they are getting themselves into.
Yeah. And I think that's our responsibility as photojournalists, that not just going in to document, go out and give it to the consumers, but
Yeah,
we carry that responsibility with us every day.
absolutely, absolutely.
Um,
And I
Thank you,
remember in the
Kelly,
beginning of
for
my
the question.
in the beginning of my career, I was always like, oh, I was a bit afraid to be so open about it to some protagonist. If I was portraying a story that was, for instance, about the extreme right wing, I of course knew there would be a lot of backlash, but I was like, oh, we'll see how it goes. And then it was very negative, and I was afraid they would be angry at me. So yeah, after having some experience with that, I always tell people exactly what they're signing up for. I think it's the most important thing we can do to
Yeah,
protect the people we work with.
agreed.
Yeah. Well, thanks. That was a good question, Kelly. Thanks everyone for the lovely questions, and thank you, Jasper, for this beautiful, beautiful presentation. I
Oh, thank
really
you.
enjoyed seeing your whole career pass by. I never knew about the stock photography. That was very interesting to see your start and how you found your visual voice. And I'm very happy you found it, because it's always such a blessing to look at your work. It's just very inspiring. In the Netherlands, almost every photographer I know, yeah, of course, wants to be Jasper Doest. Everyone knows you. Everyone celebrates your work. I think it's a worldwide thing, but in the Netherlands, you are quite a rock star. So thanks for sharing that with all of us. And thanks everyone for joining in. And I hope to see you soon on the next one. Thank you. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone. Bye.